Hello and welcome to another captaincy video from Fantasy Football Scout. Festive fixtures are in full swing, and next up is game week 15, which includes the Boxing Day games. Joining me to look at the best armband options is David. David, happy Christmas and welcome.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you as well, Joe. Yeah, it's good to be here talking about some festive captains. We've got quite a few to come up in the next couple of weeks. But because we've had quite a few in the last couple of weeks, we haven't been able to squeeze in one of these videos. So long time no see, I suppose.
Yes. So we've got lots. We've had lots of options the last few weeks, and they've all delivered mostly. We're still waiting for that Werner Hall. Maybe that will never come, but one day that will come. This week, I think is one of the easiest decisions I make. I'm not sure whether this captain, who's my current bus team captain, will come good, but yeah, Mohamed Salah against West Brom at home. He was benched the last fixture. He still managed a huge return of 16 points in just half an hour. So he's got his rest. He should be assured of a start. He's at home. He's on the back of another great season. So yeah, what do you think? Mo Salah,
Yes.
is he the best one?
Well, he's certainly one of the best ones, I think. Yeah, there's not a lot to not like about the player himself. As you said, he didn't need too long to
No.
do what he did at Selhurst Park, and I sort of think that a lot of the media stories in the build up to that game sort of played a part as well. Like there was this kind of like narrative going around that he'd been benched because he was on the naughty step because of some comments he'd made about maybe not being at the club for forever, and then he goes and does that when he clearly wasn't that happy about not starting the game. So I feel like he's quite fired up. And then the fact that he's obviously had his rest means he's definitely going to start the next one, you would think. So yeah, lots of like from that perspective. In terms of the stats that he's been posting in the last four matches, he's had 10 shots on target, which is the joint best of anyone in the league, which of course is even more impressive over that period, bearing in mind that he's only played 297 minutes, and most of the other people that he's had more shots on target than have like started every game, played 90 minutes, so they've played more like 360 minutes. Shots inside the box is just 7, which is kind of low for him, but he's getting them all on target, and his shot accuracy is 58%, which is high enough to be impressive, but not so high to be unsustainable, which I think is good.
Yeah.
And then when you just look back at what he usually does at Anfield this season, also reliable enough. He's scored in big fixtures, he's scored in tough fixtures, he's scored in easy fixtures, double figure hauls, etc.
Yeah.
So 7 points against Spurs, 14 against Wolves. He obviously missed the Leicester game, so we obviously don't really count that one because we think he's going to play. He got 8 points against West Ham, 5 points against Arsenal, 20 points against Leeds. The only game he's blanked at home this season was the Sheffield United game,
Yeah.
which this sort of segues nicely a little bit into where the caveats sort of come from with West Brom, because I think he'll get something. I'm not going to stand here and say he will blank, but there is always just that thing at the back of my mind with West Brom in these bigger games this season. They've actually not been sort of like rolled over as many times as we expect, and of course all of that is under Bilic, so it's hard to really sort of point to that with the same level of reliability as if Bilic was still in the job. But basically, after they drew 3-0 with Chelsea, which obviously wasn't, they conceded 3 goals to a big team there. But after that, they started to get a little bit more kind of. They kind of got this idea of a deep block a little bit more. Were able to defend better against these bigger teams. So they only lost 1-0 to Spurs and nearly got a point. They only lost 1-0 to Man United and nearly got a point. They drew 1-1 with Man City. Probably should have lost the game, but the recurring theme for all of those big games that they had was Sam Johnston was just an absolute. Well, he was like Mr. Tickle. It was like he had like 8 arms. It was just absolutely ridiculous. So we know that the goalkeeper is capable of, causing problems for our captain candidates. I think we even talked about it after the Man City game, because Man City really should have won that game by a massive amount.
Yeah.
De Bruyne in that game was really, really unfortunate not to get more returns, either because his shots were saved or he played someone through and their shots were saved. And we were all sort of looking at each other and thinking, well, is this a new factor that we have to sometimes talk about with the captaincy? Is how good is the goalkeeper?
Yeah.
If they're good enough, to limit the captain candidates to lower scores. I mean, going back over those games, how many of us captain Kane or Son against West Brom? In game week 8, thinking double figure hauls were coming, we're going to be tumbling down and we were going to be shooting up the ranks, and they both just got one attack in return each. The Man United game as well, how many of us went for Bruno Fernandes and didn't get as many points as we'd like? And of course, the Man City game, as we just talked about. So that's always going to be at the back of my mind. And then and then add into the mix, they've got Sam Allardyce. So it's like, even beforehand, they didn't have the manager who was like famed for this style of football. Now they do. So, that's always going to be at the back of my mind when perhaps I'm looking at some of the other candidates. It's definitely worth thinking about.
It is definitely. I mean, for me, it's definitely Mohamed Salah for the captaincy. I think with West Brom, when they're up against quality, yes, they put up a fight, but then they shipped 3 goals to Villa, and Jack Grealish inspired it. So Jack Grealish is obviously high quality. With Mohamed Salah, you're getting massive amount of quality. We can see with those shots on target. Some of the other figures we got up on the screen. This is last 4 game weeks, by the way. It shows that amongst Liverpool assets, he's the clear favourite for the captaincy. His expected goal involvement. He's expected to have been involved in at least 2.5 goals. He in fact scored 5. But as you said, 10 shots on target, 7 inside the box, 5 goals, created 3 chances. He's got a bit of everything. He clearly was. He doesn't like being benched. Clearly, he was riled up, and he's got a point to prove. And in Minamino, Klopp has a squad player that can come in and replace any of them. They have this traffic light system. It's been reported in terms of their injuries. Why I really like Salah is just really basic at this time of year. It's basically who's going to start with the fixtures coming so quick. I want a sure starter. He's a sure starter at home against a relegation threatened team. Salah for me. I think Firmino is a really good option. You can see 7 shots inside the box, all on target. It's absolutely clinical. His goals against Palace, in fact his overall display was phenomenal. There was one goal where it was on the side of the boot, but he seemed to take it. It was an incredible piece of skill, and not many strikers, false nines, whatever you want to call him, can do that. Firmino, as was pointed out on the Scoutcast last week with Sam, picked him as a differential. Firmino loves December. December loves Firmino. He just keeps racking up the points then. It's not a bad option to go for if you're looking for a differential. But Mane as well, looking good. 12 shots inside the box, not all on target though. So weirdly, this is weird. Usually it's Salah who's just shooting. Some of them might go in. And Mane is clinical. And he doesn't shoot so often, but all of them on target. But look at that, 12 shots inside the box, just 4 on target. They've swapped roles, but
Freaky Friday.
All of those 3 are good. And I just flagged up Minamino there because he is also on the list in terms of goal involvement. Robertson, 11 chances, clean sheet potential, not to be excluded from the captaincy at all. I think if you're after a maverick move, but yeah, I'm personally not going to bet against Salah this time. Just before we move on to another candidate, so I just wanted to flag up something from our latest Whipping Boys table, which is these are the teams that are conceding the most big chances over the last 4 game weeks. Leeds by miles conceding loads, but they're scoring loads. So a lot of the teams right up there that are conceding a lot of big chances have also played Leeds, and so target Leeds matches. I was saying before we came on air, Leeds, apart from Luke Ayling, that virtually all of them are capable of scoring. Even Meslier might give it a go, and then also anyone who's against them, they are so gung-ho that there could be a good captaincy shout there. Just something to flag up there. Sheffield United, Manchester United, West Ham, Fulham and West Brom are up there in terms of big chances conceded. Best defences at the moment, Villa, City, Man City that is, Chelsea and Tottenham. That's sort of, apart from Villa being there, there's a nice symmetry at the end of this crazy year to see the likes of Chelsea, Tottenham, Leicester, Man City, even Arsenal and Everton all there for in terms of very favourable stats in terms of the number of big chances they're conceding. It fills me with hope. Perhaps we can get some order into these festive fixtures. Let's move on to some other candidates. What a score for Fernandez last week. Huge score. I kind of lost count. He was my captain. I even lost count, and I think most of his owners did really. It was just so exciting against Leeds there. But I think I think he's a good option again. The Foxes are at home, and against the Foxes are at home, and he faces the Foxes. Fernandez against Leicester. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's away from home, right? So
There we
done
go.
and dusted.
Yeah.
So something that Andy said on Twitter was that even though he's now blanked in one away game, we can still sort of be like he's a good captain candidate because he's only blanked in one away match since
Yeah.
signing for Manchester United, which actually is still pretty impressive. Yeah, and Leicester, I never really know what to expect with them. I think that would be. No, I'm usually the person who sits over here and kind of talks about the why maybe what's troubling me about this captaincy. I never really know what to expect with Leicester. I really have no clue. No idea. I mean, I suppose they're better away from home than they are at home, which is it's probably it's probably not as simple as that. But I thought they were pretty poor against Everton. I thought Everton did a job on them, and then they did a job on Spurs. So, bearing in mind how inconsistent Man United can be as well. I mean, I reckon Leicester probably take the lead in this game.
Yeah.
Man United are just experts at conceding the first goal on the road. So, surely it's got to come back to bite them eventually, right? They're really bad sort of like game management in away matches. So, yeah, they're two very unpredictable sides. I haven't owned a Leicester player, I don't think, basically all season because I never know what I'm going to get from them. So, yeah, but so they could completely outclass Man United. They could get completely destroyed by Man United, which sort of worries me a bit. I certainly would think Salah's the better candidate than Fernandes
Yes,
this week.
yes, I do think so. I think Fernandez is if he's playing in a more advanced number 10 role, then yes, I think he can certainly rack up some points against Leicester. But if he's not, so if we see in the midfield that he's a bit further back, he's more in a sort of a number 6, number 8 sort of. He's just much further back, sort of, and the likes of perhaps Pogba are getting more advanced. McTominay even are getting more advanced. Then you start to think, can he do it? The other thing is, I noticed I've got some stats up on the screen. Once again, last 4 game weeks, and they show that Martial is in fact starting to improve. We're seeing that in his FPL points. We're starting to see that in the underlying stats too. The most big chances out of any Manchester United asset last 4 game weeks is Martial with 4. Very impressive. 11 goal attempts. Just 1 goal to show for it. Suggests more are to come. 9 of those shots inside the box. Half of them on target. Rashford's behind there with 1 big chance, but he's created 14 chances, 10 goal attempts. So not to be ignored. These are big figures considering he's a midfielder, not the attacker that Martial is. Rashford coming in from the left, 3 big chances. And 4 little chances created and 13 goal attempts. These are really strong figures. They have a double game week coming up soon, so it's shrewd investment anyway. But I think potentially, I mean, not for the captaincy, Martial and Rashford, but Fernandes, I think possibly this week. But I don't know. Maybe all of them are good candidates. Sticking with Manchester though, I was looking at KDB, and I'm thinking of getting rid of him myself. But KDB and Sterling against Newcastle actually does look like a really good fixture, and he's my vice captain at the moment. Looking at expected goal involvement, yeah, he was talking about that West Brom game. He was unlucky, and I'm getting that feeling about him. He is a bit unlucky, but then I'm also getting that feeling. Perhaps I think I'd maybe prefer him a bit further back, which is a bit weird. Because I'm not sure I like him in that sort of number 10, more attacking, loitering around the penalty box role. I think I like him running from deep, from centre, and coming in late on. And he's been so effective last season doing that. And yeah. But anyway, what do you think? KDB against Newcastle? That looks quite strong to me.
Yeah, it actually was my bus captain when I set the team. And I own Kane, Salah, De Bruyne and Fernandes. So I had quite a lot to choose from. And my eye was very much drawn to a home game against Newcastle, to be honest. I think you're absolutely right. I think he's due a massive haul because he's been really unlucky in the last couple of games he's played. Been caught out by some good goalkeeping. Obviously, Darlow's made a hell of a lot of saves this year, so maybe it could be the same story. But I think the one thing they were missing, against Southampton, for example, was Jesus, who because he had a tooth problem. But obviously he's back now, and they've got what they need, which is they've got both strikers theoretically fit to be in the matchday squad. Because I feel like Aguero is not quite there yet because he keeps getting named on the
Yeah.
bench and not really getting many minutes. But surely that's going to keep ramping up. But the other thing is, I think it's not just De Bruyne who's about to explode. I think it's Man City as well. Because when after the most recent round of matches where Liverpool scored 7 and Man City scored 1, I did a little bit of a comparison between their two attacks in the previous 4 matches. Now, in that period, Liverpool scored 14 goals and Man City scored 4.
Ah.
So if you just look at it on the surface, you think, oh, well, yeah, the Liverpool attack, that's where we've got to go, right? Because they're just outscoring Man City. But when you look at what they're doing underneath that, Liverpool are being more clinical, of course. But between that period, so last 4 matches, Liverpool as a team had mustered 54 shots, Man City 61. 42 from open play for Man City, just 39 for Liverpool. For shots in the box, it was actually mostly similar, but even still shows you that there's not as much disparity between the two attacks as you think. It was 40 shots in the box for Liverpool, 41 for Man City. Now the crucial thing for me that surely is going to get sorted soon is the fact that even across that period where Liverpool scored 10 goals more than Man City had 14 big chances and Liverpool only had 10. So they're still getting even the better chances. But the biggest problem was, of course, the accuracy. Liverpool had 30 shots on target, Man City just 19. But this is Man City. I can't see accuracy being a problem that just continues to persist. They're going to have a home game where they're just going to blow someone away. And we said this before the Burnley game, and that's what happened. It was a 5-0. I think that can happen against Newcastle because they've got a history of it. And Newcastle are a team that their defensive stats are never normally that awful. So they obviously weren't within the whipping boys that we mentioned. In the last 4 matches. Their XGC is sort of like mid-tables, 4.94.
So similar to Burnley. Burnley are never really considered whipping boys at the moment.
Yeah, but I've seen De Bruyne, did very well against Newcastle last year. I just kind of, I don't know. There's part of it is a little bit unquantifiable in my mind. Obviously, some of those stats play a part in it, but surely De Bruyne is going to explode at some point. And I feel like it could be this one. I mean, the pressure's on Newcastle. Obviously, they were really rubbish against, I think it was Stoke in the EFL Cup. Steve Bruce's job is sort of like hanging in the balance. So, yeah, there's a lot of things sort of against Newcastle, and they don't really strike me as a team that can do the deep block as much as well as a lot of some of these other teams can. They sort of like try to play a really sort of like frustrating, boring game of football, which I think Man City can probably pass their way through. So yeah, I'm undecided at the moment. Like I said, he's my bus captain. It's probably between him and Salah.
And
but I'm certainly strongly considering.
Yeah, sometimes also this busy when festive fixture congestion kicks in. Sometimes managers of lesser teams, no disrespect to Newcastle, but lesser to Man City, will look at a fixture like this and think, well, we're not going to win it. Let's really target those winnable fixtures we've got around Christmas and the New Year. And so you might see some rotation there, which could fall into Man City's hands. Also, Pep has said that KDB won't be rotated. He feels that he's had his rests in the Champions League and is too important to them. The stats we've got up on the screen, last 4 game weeks, in terms of Man City assets, he is the highest for expected goal involvement, 3.53, 14 goal attempts, 14 chances created. These are really strong underlying stats. Interestingly, with Sterling, so the problem is who's going to put away all of these chances. Well, Sterling is as a previous Sterling owner, his stats were really low before, and they're starting to creep up. 9 goal attempts, but 6 of those on target. These are good. That's more accuracy coming from Sterling, which is what you want, especially if it's De Bruyne is the one that's delivering. The other thing I noted, I had a quick look at expected goal involvement last 4 game weeks in general, and De Bruyne's top for it. So in terms of players that are expected to be involved in goals, De Bruyne is the best asset over all other players at the moment. Vardy is in fact second, largely those penalties, but he is scoring from open play too. Werner was expected to, the wasteful Werner, and El Ghazi at Aston Villa. A little cheeky differential there for those that are wildcarding perhaps in game week 16 and you fancy a quick 1 week punt. El Ghazi 5.7. He's 4th out of all players for expected goal involvement last 4 game weeks. But yeah, all of these stats and all of what you've been just saying just points to I'm partly tempted to switch to KDB now. You've almost persuaded me. Maybe. But he's a strong candidate. Very strong.
Yeah,
I certainly wouldn't be removing him for Newcastle. Other options as well. Kane and Son. Underlying stats wise, not as impressive. They've had tough games, but perhaps they can improve. With good fixtures comes better form. And they're against Wolves. They're against Wolves, and Wolves are a funny one. They're not quite the Wolves we know, but they are showing sparks of brilliance at times. But now Bolly is out of the back four occasionally. I don't know whether he's being rotated. He's nursing an injury. But Kane and Son, I mean, not to be discounted. Do you think they, for those that like a good maverick pick for the captaincy, what do you think? Kane or Son against Wolves?
yeah, I think so. I think I mean I've already sort of covered my approach in terms of if I feel that there's a game that's unpredictable, then I'll probably avoid it. And I feel like this is such a game because Wolves, I think, are almost as much of an epitome of unpredictability as Leicester are. But Spurs are usually quite good away from home, so there's that as well. Kane, I think his blank at Anfield, it's well quite rare for him to be honest. But he was close. He was close anyway. He had that headed chance just under the crossbar and got it just wrong. Wolves without Bolly, they haven't looked as defensively sound since was it the Southampton game when they didn't have Cody and they didn't have Saiz, so they went to a back four, but then they stuck with the back four even though Cody came back and that didn't work. Now they've lost Bolly. I don't think they're. I mean, actually, Bolly was the catalyst for them being so good at keeping clean sheets in Project Restart, just before Project Restart, wasn't it? I think it was between game week 25 and the end of the season. Game week 25, of course, being when Bolly came back from his injury. They were one of the best teams in the league for clean sheets. Before that point, they weren't. So without him, makes a big difference. But at the same time, this Wolves team is fully capable of sort of like taking the game to Spurs in a way that kind of puts them on the back foot. As we've seen in games recently with Neto and Podence on the counter attack are really, really dangerous. And Fabio Silva was obviously, kind of slowly finding his feet. Clearly a quality player. Very different to Jimenez though, which is the thing. So that's why they're not consistently brilliant with him in the attack yet. But they will get there. And historically they have fancied the big game. So who knows what will happen in that one. So for me, I'd rather look between Salah and De Bruyne.
Yeah, Salah and De Bruyne, definitely. But I think if I was more maverick-minded, Kane or Son can't be discounted. Kane in particular, 15 goal attempts last 4 game weeks. That's 3 times as many shots as Son over that period. But Son is, of course, very clinical. Son has created 8 chances to Kane's 2. Once again, we're seeing a bit of reversal here. Earlier in the season, it was more Kane was the more creative player with the shots still, and it was Son who was shooting more, or shooting more accurately as well. But we can see there in the goal involvement. If we think Spurs are going to score, who's going to be involved, Son or Kane? Last 4 game weeks, Son is 100% on the goal involvement, Kane 75. So they're not scoring so much in those poor fixtures, but they certainly are capable of doing so. Looking at those fixtures, there are possibly other candidates. I mean, Salah and KDB, I think, are such standouts this week, but there are other options as well. Looking down the list, this is Boxing Day and Sunday the 27th of December. I think Chelsea against Arsenal. Arsenal are very out of sorts, and Chelsea are very capable of putting a haul together. And of course Grealish with Aston Villa at Palace. They are options, and perhaps Jamie Vardy at Manchester United. It's sort of a bit scraping the barrel time, but any of those names kind of spring out as differential captains?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not a massive fan of the Sheffield United defence anymore. So Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I think, is hardly a bad shout.
Good shout.
And if I'm not mistaken, a former Sheffield United player as well. So
yes.
He's got a little bit of form with him, I suppose. I think he's fantasy assisted in every one of his last 3 games in which he's not scored.
Yeah.
So he will tick along for you. He's certainly the definition of a reliable asset. Sheffield United's defence is rubbish. He's got the narrative on his side, as I just mentioned there, former Sheffield United player. It's interesting with Everton because without Rodriguez and their new system of playing their centre backs as full backs, they're defensively better, but the supply lines to Calvert-Lewin are a little bit sort of damaged by that. So he doesn't get as many chances as he did at the start of the season. If you look at a comparison for his XG shot map, it's for say like the first 10 game weeks of the season, it's full of massive green circles right in the 6-yard box, and it's hardly anything. Now his chances are coming from further and further out. So compared to some of the other budget strikers, he's not as much of a sort of value pick as he was. And anyone who's moved off from him to Bamford or even Danny Welbeck has had a little bit of luck in terms of maybe unlocking something elsewhere. But if you still own him, a Sheffield United game, this is the one I'm most concerned about not owning Calvert-Lewin, having sold him a few weeks ago. So, yeah, I suppose the only other thing to mention is we talked about Leeds earlier, didn't we? About how their games are always pretty wide open. We talked about their defensive stats. The sad thing is, and this is no disrespect to Burnley, that's who they're playing this week.
Yeah.
It's quite difficult to sort of say Chris Wood, but I mean, Chris Wood's been everywhere. Pretty sure he's played for Leeds. So if we're talking about narratives as well, former Leeds player playing against Leeds in a game where things are going to be pretty hectic, you never know. You never know. He's a penalty taker as well, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good shout. I mean, basically, Leeds' defence are giving up lots of chance, but of course they're scoring as well. So as we said earlier with the stats with Leeds, whoever's they're playing against, and could be Ashley Barnes, could be in with a shout. My man Charlie Taylor could even be in with an assist or two, but I think he could be conceding quite a bit. I think Nick Pope's going to have his work cut out in this game.
Oh, definitely. Captain Nick Pope. He loves getting big hauls against teams that shoot a lot. So.
Do you know what? No, I'm not going to do that. Before we go, just want to mention the members area. That's where we got all those stats from, and there's loads more in there. You can create your own tables. The Rate My Team tool, lots and lots of stats to pour over there. But in the meantime, good luck everyone with your Christmas captaincy. David, good luck with your Christmas captaincy choice as well.
Cheers, thanks, and same to you as well, Joe.